Meow, 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 meow. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Kat and I write children's fiction. Today I'm going to analyze one of my all-time favorite books, just to teach you how to read as a writer and basically to really get into the details, analyze why a story works for you, why it doesn't work, and to apply the lessons to your own writing. And today's all-time favorite book that I'm going to analyze is Harry Potter. Because how could it not be? This is the German version, by the way. 3 things before we start. One is make sure that you check out the other parts in this Learning from the Master series, because I already analyzed George R. R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire as well as Suzanne Collins' Hunger Games, so I'm gonna link those videos up here and make sure to check them out. Second is just a reminder that I don't mean to bash J.K. Rowling or any of the other authors in any way with these videos. It's really just an exercise in critical thinking. And number 3 is that I'm only going to talk about the original 7 books in this video, not about The Cursed Child and also not about the Fantastic Beasts franchise. So yeah, they are a whole other story and I'm not gonna touch on them in this video. Thing number 1 that J.K. Rowling does amazingly well, and I think this is why so many people really love this story, is her world building. So first of all, I think that she has great ideas. There are so many cool elements, and I think it's also a really good balance of world building and storytelling. So she doesn't overload you, it's not an info dump, but there are really cool ideas that get to shine in her story. Another really big factor in this is that her world is just fantastical enough to be removed from our own world, but not too fantastical. It's not, you know, Middle Earth or Westeros or some far away dystopian future or some medieval past. It's basically happening here and now. I think it's really just a good balance, and I think there's just a reason why so many people want to live in this world and to experience it, and why the theme parks and the studio tour are just so successful as well, because it's a whole world that could exist. It could exist in our real world. Thing number 2 that J.K. Rowling does really well is plant little hints and Easter eggs that then have more significance later on in the story. There are so many examples of this. One would be the portkeys in the 4th book. So, for example, we just see the portkeys, they're introduced when everybody goes to the Quidditch World Cup, and we just think, okay, it's a cool element of world building, this is how wizards get around, it's a magical means of transportation, and we're kind of happy with that. But then, later on, it turns out that the Tri-Wizard Cup is a portkey. And yeah, she just does this so many times, where she just picks up elements of the story again, and it makes for a very satisfying read to, you know, figure out all those little clues and Easter eggs. And I just also think it gives the story an overall very planned out and polished feeling. The third thing that J.K. Rowling does really well is respecting reader expectations. I have a video all about reader expectations, so I will link it up here. But yeah, basically, I feel like J.K. Rowling, when she wrote the original 7 books, was just very aware that people are waiting for her to finish the story, that the movies were dependent on her finishing the story, and that the actors were growing up and there was kind of a time pressure. I think that she did a great job tying up all the loose ends and making the story overall pretty satisfying. And I also think it's actually cool that she decided, for example, not to kill off Harry and just give readers a happy ending, because she started out the series as a kids books series, even though I think it kind of morphed into young adult. But yeah, she just kind of respected her roots by giving the story a happy ending. So yeah, I think this is done pretty well. She manages to keep a balance of respecting reader expectations, but at the same time also surprising us. Thing number 4 that J.K. Rowling does really well, in my opinion, is working with character archetypes and thereby creating a great villain. The great villain I'm talking about is, of course, Umbridge. Because here's the thing. I think Voldemort works fine as a kid's book villain, but I think Umbridge is actually way more effective. Why is that? Because we all know a person like that. We all know this piece of teacher who is super unfair, who likes to pick on specific students for no reasons, who shouldn't be in this profession. And we all know these kind of teachers. This is just a really great character, a really great villain. And we have this kind of tyrannical teacher archetype. And there are many other archetypes in the story as well. For example, contrasting that is McGonagall, who's the very strict but fair teacher. We have mentors, cool uncles, the best friend, the nerdy girl, the chosen one. All those archetypes kind of work. They are colorful enough that they kind of have their own life in the story, and they don't just seem like cardboard cutouts of the same figures over and over. So I think this way that J.K. Rowling works with archetypes and just kind of looking what kind of people exist in the real world and how they would translate to her story, I think she did this in a really good way. Thing number 5 that J.K. Rowling did really well is writing a mystery in a fantasy setting. I already talked about this a bit in my analysis of A Song of Ice and Fire, where I basically said that the Song of Ice and Fire series is a political thriller in a fantasy setting rather than just a fantasy. Because I think so many times fantasy and sci-fi authors kind of get lost in all their world building and they forget that world building is just a part of it and that we still need an actual story. So I think J.K. Rowling does this really well. All of her books are basically mysteries. For example, what's the Philosopher's Stone and who's trying to steal it? Or what's the Chamber of Secret? What's the monster? And who's the heir of Slytherin? So I just think, again, she has a really good balance of world building and story elements that both draw you in equally. Those were some of the factors that I just really love about Rowling's writing in the Harry Potter books. And now let's move on to the things that I think she could improve. Thing number 1 is actually just a thing in some of the books, which is that the adults and figures of authority are just suspiciously absent. I have a whole video on absent and dead parents and kids books, so have a look here after you finish this video. But yeah, basically I just think that there should be more adult supervision, or that there's not a good enough reason given within the books to not have adult supervision. This, to me, is very prominently shown in the second book, where they figure out what the Chamber of Secrets is. They know that Ginny's life depends on them getting there fast and killing the basilisk, and they just go to the least qualified teacher. I mean, they know he's not a good teacher. They know that Lockhart is just kind of blah. So why wouldn't they go to McGonagall or just to the other teachers to ask for help? Just go in with the whole squad. There's no good reason for that, and I think this is something that could have been solved a little more elegantly. Thing number 2 that could be improved in the story is fixing plot holes. Why is the entrance to the Chamber of Secrets in a bathroom when plumbing was only introduced at Hogwarts hundreds of years later? I mean, I heard that there was this heir of Slytherin who fixed the whole situation, but that's a bit weird. Why didn't Fred and George ever notice Peter Pettigrew on the Marauders map? Why is the Tri-Wizard tournament a spectator sport and has 2 of the tasks as like the worst spectator events ever. I mean, one is in the bottom of a lake where nobody can see anything, and the other one is in a labyrinth where nobody can see anything. To be fair, most books don't get picked apart to the same extent that the Harry Potter books get picked apart. And I also didn't notice most of these plot holes until they were pointed out to me. So I think on a whole, it's fine. I don't see any major problems with these plot holes. What I'm saying is, for your writing, get yourself the most nitpicky beta readers and very observant people who can point those plot holes out to you. Thing number 3 that I think J.K. Rowling should really improve is her social media presence. I know that I said in the beginning of the video that I'm going to keep this discussion to the 7 original books, but I think that this point is so important that I'm going to include it anyway, because you could kind of see J.K. Rowling's fall from grace via her social media activity. I think that she really went to someone who was a universally beloved author to someone who's seen as a bit problematic nowadays, and I think that's really due to her social media activity almost exclusively. One of the things that actually bothered me early on is that I think her social media activity is actually overly political. Don't get me wrong, of course, everybody's allowed to have their political opinions, and everybody's also more than welcome to share them and trying to, use their influence to make the world a better place. But here's the thing. I found it so hard at some point to even find tweets by J.K. Rowling that are not about politics, that are just about her writing and about her stories and the world that she created. If I want to have political comments and follow a political commentator, I'm gonna follow a political commentator. I'm not gonna follow J.K. Rowling for that. So I found this kind of annoying, and of course you're more than welcome to disagree. But where most people started to agree is that J.K. Rowling kind of tried to add to the canon via social media after the fact. And she kind of tried to talk the talk but not walk the walk, so to speak. So, for example, she added Dumbledore as gay, and in the original 7 books, it's totally fine that there's no mention of that because, okay, why would Harry know the sexuality of his 120-year-old teacher? And Harry is also not the most observant person, and those books are from his perspective. So that's all fine. But then why isn't this relationship featured in the Fantastic Beasts movies? There's just not a good reason for that, but she keeps insisting in interviews and on social media that Dumbledore is gay and that this relationship with Grindelwald was heavily sexual, and there's just no evidence to show for that. I think the same thing kind of happened with Hermione being black in The Cursed Child. My main problem with this actually that it's a disservice to the character and it's a disservice to how people experience racism. Because there's a specific scene in The Chamber of Secrets where Hermione gets called a mudblood, and her reaction is just to be confused. The thing is, that's not the reaction of someone who experienced racism before, because someone who experienced racism will be very quickly able to pick up that this was just a racist slur that was told to them, even if they don't know the word. So you can definitely see that Hermione never experienced racism, and that this is a very unlikely thing if she grew up in 80s and 90s Britain. So basically, I just think that J.K. Rowling should own up to what she wrote. Because here's the thing. She wrote this book in the 90s, and I think it's totally fine for her to say, you know what, when I wrote this book in the 90s, I just envisioned a predominantly white cast. And if I would have written the book now, I would have written it differently. And I think that's fine because people change, people grow. And also social discussions change. This discussion about having representation in books and how important that is, that's a fairly new discussion. So I think it's totally fine to kind of take in new information and change your opinions. And that doesn't mean that you should act like you always had those opinions. It's okay to change your mind, and it's okay to grow as a person. Okay, so those were my 2 cents. As always, of course, let me know what you think in the comments. Have you read Harry Potter and did you love it? If so, why do you love it? Do you find J.K. Rowling problematic? Or maybe do you generally just hate the Harry Potter books and wish everybody would already shut up about them? Let me know in the comments down below. Don't be shy. I love to learn from you, and I think you always have great things to say. So leave me your comments down below. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you liked it. Give it a thumbs up if you did, and also follow my channel if you haven't already. Click the little subscribe button. I upload new videos every single Tuesday, and you can also come to hang out with me on all of my other social media. I am at Sperling Books pretty much everywhere except for Twitter, where I am at Sperling Books. Everything is also linked down below. Thank you so much for watching today, and I will see you next time. Bye!